To order the City Council special meeting for the City of Wyoming, Minnesota, November 7th, 2023 at 8 p.m. Let the record reflect, we do have a quorum. Member Luker, Member Onstad, Member Schilling, Member Yeager, and Mayor Iverson are present. We will be led the Pledge of Allegiance by Member Schilling. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Veterans Day is coming up on Saturday. I would like to thank all the veterans that are in the room tonight for your service, and also to Member Schilling as well, as he is a veteran. So appreciate and thankful for everything you've done for our country. Let's go to open forum. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on items that are not on the current agenda. Items requiring council action may be deferred to staff or boards and commissions for research and future council agendas if appropriate. You will be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask that you conduct yourself in a professional, courteous manner and refrain from the use of profanity. Failure to abide by this policy may result in the loss of your privilege to speak. So we do have the public hearing for the road, so we'll save those comments for when we open the public hearing. If there's anything else besides that you would like to come up and speak on, we'd be more than happy to hear from you. All right, let's start with Commissioner Matska and, okay, yep.
Madam Mayor. I called you Madam
I
Chair.
know,
Sorry.
you're just on commissioner time, it's all good.
Okay. It's an honor to be here today. I just wanted to give a brief report on the goings-on at the county. We have completed our preliminary levy adjustment and budget adjustment. Right now, we are looking at a 3.3% increase. Last year, we had a 2.8% increase. The average among local units of government in Chisago County on a preliminary basis is 9.5%. And I think that some of that is related to the severe employee cost increases due to inflation and the need to make sure we're having good employees. It's certainly a challenge in our county dealing with issues with the sheriff, for example. We cannot hire enough employees, so we are actually trying to hire more than we actually have budgeted for, knowing that by the time we get the staff in, it's going to fit, and somehow we'll make it work. If, God forbid, we would actually get the employees that we need. There's been some discussion.
It's all good.
I don't blame
No,
you.
that's
It's all
not
good.
really
We're
me.
good.
We love babies.
Yeah.
Okay. There's been some discussion. One of our colleagues was wanting to move our meetings to the morning, 9 o'clock. And there's been some analysis on that. However, when we looked at the analysis, which didn't get in the paper, the analysis is actually incorrect. If we had our meetings during the day, staff would attend. They're not working then. So they would then have to work overtime to make up for the difference. And when we've had day meetings, we've had just a significant number of employees attending. And so from a management perspective, that's interesting, and it certainly is a cost. So we feel that actually have evening meetings is actually cheaper because we have the employees here at annual evening meetings like this city council does when they are needed, and then we of course allow them to flex their time or to pay them overtime if they wish. We leave it up to them. And certainly for citizens, we are finding that citizens inevitably would rather not take off work when they want to come to address the county board. And so that's why most units of government have meetings in the evening. County boards are moving in that direction. There's a number of counties that are actually moving towards more evening meetings, and I'm anticipating that's going to continue. Other than that, well, I should also mention, just from a budgeting perspective, we are looking at further limiting the levy increase for next year. I don't know exactly how low we can go, but there are some additional items that we found savings. The mayor had specifically asked about the possibility of using ARPA funds for some needs in the cities, And that is still an issue which has not been decided, but I'm finding it difficult to do that. However, we are in a situation where we have to spend those dollars. So if possible, we will contact the city, but then you'd have to spend it quickly. Because we want to make sure, our goal is actually spend the ARPA funds as soon as possible, because we're concerned about some of the currents going on in Washington DC where we think there may be clawback. So we intend to spend that money because that's going to be for important needs in our community. However, I don't know if there's any, so far there's been no interest really on the board, very little to do anything like we talked about to encourage economic development within the city. Certainly, if we could put it in like a good road to lighten the load for residents, that would something we'd sure like to do. However, there are budgetary concerns within the county organizations, such as buildings which need to be replaced. And so it looks like much of it's going to be spent on that. There is a broadband program, and it looks like that's going to be basically defunded after current applicants are involved, and then we'll see what we have left for other needs.
Okay.
And so I appreciate the mayor raising that with me, and I would love to call you, Madam Mayor, and say, yes,
Anytime.
we can partner with you. Because I know there's lots of needs.
There is.
And I know that the city has been cautious in how you are budgeting, and you've also been able to get a lot of growth in the area. So thank you for all the work you've had in bringing in new commercial development within our county, which is really what we need to focus on. The homes, they seem to come. Certainly we need to focus on low income, and that's something that local government should continue to try to encourage. But certainly the market rate homes are coming. But we need to make it affordable for the people by having more businesses.
Yep, great.
I don't know that I have anything else to add, but thank you so much.
Yeah,
And Yes.
I'll ask one question.
absolutely.
Our Armor radio agreement, that is coming to an end, and
Yes,
it would
it
be
is.
really sad to have to go through everything we went through 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So I'll
Thought it
be
was
at,
10 years ago. Sorry,
Well-
I'm joking.
goes fast, but it was 3. I remember it well. So I know the mayors are ready to attend the meetings to get this taken care of. So yeah, whatever you can do to move that along. It ends December 31st, I believe. So it just really needs to get done. It's important. And then also, I believe federal government's going to hand down to state, going to hand down to county the upgrades to the Armor radio towers too. So we need to be ready for that.
The requirements for it.
Yep.
Yes, and I appreciate that. We are working on it. We're aware of that. It's certainly a concern that we're going to have to make sure we're partnering with you.
Yep.
We want to encourage this. We want to work together, and we will try to do like we did in the past.
Yep.
Try to make it affordable for the community.
Yeah, that'd be great. Members, any other questions, comments? No? All right, thank you for coming in. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All
I'm
right.
not going to stay for the whole meeting.
Okay,
I'm sorry, but
that's all right.
thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you for your service to our community.
Appreciate it. All right, we had somebody else. Come on up, state your name.
My name is Tom Terry. I'm a resident in the city of Wyoming. I live on the corner of Freeport Court and Viking Boulevard. I face Freeport Court, so I'm not being assessed. But I have something related to our new beautiful street.
Okay.
And I'm trying to make a couple of points. I know
Okay.
at one point I talked about maybe 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Some cities can do it. I know some, I think St. Paul, it was either St. Paul or Minneapolis, I saw a sign, 25 miles an hour unless posted otherwise. So I implore you again to review that aspect. Okay, now while the street's been repaired, the amount of traffic going down Viking Boulevard is significantly changed. And now that it's open and the bridge is still closed, still, it's like 25 years ago. It's beautiful. And we can keep our new road beautiful. I would love to see a traffic study right now while that bridge is closed so we can see what real traffic that gets as opposed to what Polaris adds to it. So I think we've got maybe 60, 65 assessments here. So maybe there's 60 or 80, maybe a couple hundred people going in and out of here on Viking. But when Polaris is there and I sit on my corner in the afternoon, it's like, it's a driveway. So I'm saying we got a nice, beautiful road and it's built to certain standards, but not, there's semis, how many dozen semis? Half a dozen a day. So I'd love to see a traffic study before and after. I think that would
Right.
be very informative.
All right.
Assessments, bridges out, traffic study. That's it.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We appreciate it. All right. Anybody else? Anything that's not currently on the agenda or basically not about roads? Anybody else? Come on up. State your name.
Yeah, my name is Zach Sakopoulos, and I'm on East Viking Boulevard as well. It's the first time coming here. I've been here for 17 years now, and I just have a question about our water tower. I noticed that we've been told that the funds to finish the painting of it was kind of used somewhere else. And so I'm actually just curious as to if we're ever going to be painting that. I've actually kind of introduced myself to someone south in the cities, and they said, "Oh, you're that city. You live in that city that didn't finish their painting their water tower." And to me, I don't like it. I don't know if anybody else doesn't like it or not. I haven't really asked around, but I do know that you guys are trying to get more businesses here in the city. And to me, seeing a water tower that's not fully painted kind of would deter me from coming to the city to bring my business. So I'm not quite sure if you guys have any other plans to try to finish that painting or not. To me, it just looks unprofessional.
Sure, I can address that. So council decided how many years ago? It's been, I feel like 7 years ago?
2017 it was
Yeah,
completed.
when we were first doing, you're talking the one that's over by Split Rocks, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we decided as a council and the way things were going in other cities, not to paint that bottom part as a cost savings.
Okay.
I know that during my day job, I go to a lot of different cities, and that's becoming more of the norm, not to paint the bottom part for cost savings, because it is super expensive. Mr. Linwood, can you address that as well?
I think that's, you're correct, Mayor, that's a portion of it. There's also, being the concrete at the bottom, you don't see many municipalities that actually do paint them, and I can defer to our city engineer a little bit too, but there is a protective coating that you can put on the cement that we also did not determine, we decided not to put that on, but that was more, would have almost been like a clear coat. It wouldn't actually provide any kind of paint to the actual concrete. But most of your new towers like that, there's currently one going up in Coon Rapids, many other ones around the Twin Cities Metro. You usually see where they have those concrete rings. They leave them as concrete, and then the actual tower component is painted. And I don't, Mr. Hornby, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, that's correct. That's the trend, is that stem is generally left concrete and the tank is painted.
Yeah, I know New Hope is going through that same thing when you drive through New Hope and stuff,
Okay.
so.
Just must not have seen
Yeah,
them, so.
that's all right. We appreciate it, though. Thanks for being here after 17 years of, come back, so. All right, is there anyone else? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 1, approval of minutes. Consider approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for October 17th, 2023. If there are no comments or questions, do we have a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Member Onstad. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. We'll move on to number 2, which is getting into our public hearing. Number 2 is to consider Resolution 2311-104, a resolution approving the assessment roll for the 2023 East Viking Boulevard Street construction project. Mr. Norby, you're gonna, Hornsby, sorry, you're gonna be kind of running through this for us to begin with, right? And we do have Mr. Erickson up on the screen and also online.
We'll bring the PowerPoint up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. In your council packet, there's a summary of the costs associated with the project. Total project cost, that was estimated because it's not closed out, but $2.697 million. It's broken down between the surface improvements, the drainage improvements, which are assessable costs, sanitary sewer improvements, the water main improvements, and the overlay improvements were not assessed. So the assessable costs were just around $1.78 million. We assess, the proposed assessment is 20% of that amount, which is $355,930.74. 74 cents. There's a total number of units of 49 and a half that are accessible. Now, I do have to mention, we did get one letter from a resident that was assessed in the 2015 project, is that correct? 2021 project. That was, actually, I looked back, was also in the preliminary assessment rule, so that would have 48 and a half accessible units. However, the assessment rate per unit remains at $7,190.52. The public hearing that was held in November of 2022, the estimated assessment amount was $7,514.44. The project is tracking under cost. We had some very competitive bids, came in well under the engineer's estimate, and most of the bids were right at or just under the engineer's estimate. So we do have budget in the project for that additional assessment loss. There is a presentation that we do have, and we'll provide that unless there's any questions on the packet.
All right, we'll go ahead with the presentation and.
All right, so this is the public hearing for the presentation for the public hearing for the East Viking Boulevard improvements. Just go to the next slide. Through the agenda, we're going to go with we're going to talk about the public improvement process, the assessment process, project location, existing conditions, the improvements, the project costs and funding sources, assessments and financing, the project schedule. There'll be an opening for public comments and city council discussions. As part of the city council discussion, there'll be consideration for adopting the assessments and or to table for future meeting. This is a kind of a calendar or a documentation of events that occurred to go through the public improvement process. There's a number of items that are shown as shaded that are in the past, but the things that we are looking at tonight is to hold the final assessment public hearing and consideration for the council to adopt the assessment roll. Once that has occurred, that would be certified to the county auditor for being placed on the tax roll. The assessment process does follow Minnesota Statute Chapter 429 for public improvements. If there are parcels or owners are in the assessment roll, they can make a written objection to appeal. It must be presented in writing and signed by the property owner prior to or at the hearing. And for council information, we did receive one. Notice of appeal must be filed within 30 days after the adoption of the assessment, and current interest rate is 5.25%. The project that is considered for assessment, I do want to make sure people understand this too. I did get some calls from people up by the bridge who are not on the assessment roll. The bridge was not an assessed project. They were asking why they didn't get notified, but I told them because they weren't being assessed. So the project generally starts at Fenwick Avenue and then extends to Glen Oak Drive, or just to the east of the curve in Glen Oak Drive. And we also did with the project extend sidewalk on the north side from Fenwick to Goldman Boulevard, which is out to the townhomes in the curve. Just a refresher on what the roadway looked like prior to the improvements. Just a number of different areas. And then the portion of the improvement that are assessed with the project is these, I should indicate the sidewalk improvements are not assessed. The drainage improvements are assessed. They maximize the use of public drainage facilities. The expansion of the existing drainage swales and ditches is necessary, which we didn't really have much of until you got to the east end. A replacement of deficient storm sewer structures and culverts within the public right-of-way. We did try to use as much of the existing storm sewer as we could. Most of the main line we were able to keep. And then additional storm sewer construction was necessary to meet current state aid standards. Other improvements that were not assessed, there were some water main improvements, the addition of some hydrants out on the east end of the project that was more for maintenance on the water main that extends out to Polaris. And installation of new gate valves, so anything related to the water main was not assessed. And then sanitary sewer improvements, there were some improvements kind of in this low area just east of Fenwick that over a wetland that had settled over time, and so that was replaced. And then we also introduced some I&I protection on the sanitary sewer system and made some spot repairs as needed, but those items are also not assessed. Those come out of the sanitary sewer fund. And just in general, what we did with the roadway, we actually put the existing roadway somewhat on a diet. We narrowed the driving lanes, and then we also maintained parking on both sides, with the exception of some areas after we had some requests for some bump outs and some restricted areas for parking and safety for pedestrian crossings. And just a couple of pictures of the new improvements, and this is fairly recent. There's still snow on the ground on some of these photos. You may notice that some of the turf is a little bit sparse in some of these photos, and you can go to the next one, Grant. The last couple of years for turf establishment has been terrible, really. We've had some of the hottest, driest summers we've experienced in quite some time. And around the metro, whether you're using sod or using seed, trying to get turf established has been pretty difficult. We actually had a pay item in here for the contractor to water the turf, but we ended up having to water it 2 or 3 times a day in order to get that good growth. And so there will be, the reason I mentioned this is that there will be some touch-up next spring. There will need to be some additional work done this spring to take care of the turf establishment. And just going through the project cost, the total project cost was about $2.697 million, as stated earlier. The city portion of that, which is about $2.34 million, and some of those costs are state aid eligible, so the state would be reimbursed by state aid. Mainly for the surface and the drainage improvements, the sanitary and water improvements would come out of the utility funds, and there was also an overlay east of Polaris that was in cooperation with Iowa City to be able to use that as a detour while the bridge was out. The assessable amount again was $355,930.67. The next one. Project funding, 20% is assessed for the surface and drainage improvements only. The assessment calculation is based on unit rather than front footage costs, so it's per unit. How many? So you might have individual lots that can not be further subdivided. They entail 1 unit, and you might have some that are larger properties that could be 2 or 3 units. So we work with the city staff to determine what in zoning ordinance is by the zoning code is subdividable, and the determination is made on the number of units per parcel. So each assessment is per each residential parcel, each residential unit. City funds do pay for the remaining project costs. And this map is a little small on the screen, but it just shows the properties that were on the assessment roll. There are a number of them that are shown as a 0 assessment. Now, some folks may have been notified of this meeting, even though they weren't going to be assessed. And where they weren't assessed is if their driveway is on the side street. Even though their address might be on East Viking Boulevard, the driveway is on the side street. So some people got it caused a little confusion with the notice, but I think that's been straightened out. And as I mentioned, there is one parcel where they were assessed in the 2021 project. So the total number of assessments would be 48.5. However, the assessment per unit would remain unchanged at $7,190.52. Financing the assessments. Assessments can be paid over, are to be paid over a 10-year period at the interest rate of 5.25%. Property owners do have the option to pay off the full assessment to avoid interest. That has to be done 30 days after the adoption of the assessment roll, which is generally around November 15th. 30 days after the adoption. also applied directly to the property tax. So there's two different ways you can do pay it off, or it gets applied to the property tax, and that's automatic if option number one is not exercised by the property owner. And this is just a rate table that indicates the assessment payback. It is accrued by year. So as you see 2024 to 2033, the annual payment that would be on the certified on the taxes, for the first year it's about just under $1,100, and it decreases every year. The last year is down to $756.80. So interest payment declines as principal is paid. And the project schedule, we've gone through the complete project schedule through today as the assessment hearing. And this is the same schedule we've had through the feasibility stage all the way through the project and the public information meetings.
All right.
With that, any questions?
Yeah, I think if it's okay with council, I just have one question, then we'll go into public hearing, and then whatever questions might come out of that. So my really question that what hasn't been talked about or was in the presentation is how we come up with that 20%. Because that's, if you can explain, that's the lowest that a city can assess for. So if maybe somebody can address that.
Sure. Can we?
You want to do that?
Sure. Mayor, members of council, essentially, Minnesota state statute, the least amount that you can assess by that statute is 20% for the project. So the city paying the 80% and then the 20% to the resident under the 429 process. So we do the least amount allowed by statute.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so we are going to go into the public hearing, so I need a motion to go into the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Member Luker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now in the public hearing. So how many people would like to speak tonight regarding the roads? Do we have anybody? Okay, so let's start here first. Come on up, and then we'll go down the road like that, because it doesn't look like we have too many. So state your name and your address.
My name is Matthew Sampers. I live on 5634 East Viking Boulevard, right next to the water drainage area and the vacant lots, next to the Assistant Care Center. I have no problem paying my fair share if that assessment is correctly. I guess my concern would probably be more like the traffic audit to figure out the amount of traffic that comes from Polaris, because we do get vibrations from the big overloaded trucks. So I have no problem if I degrade the road if I'm paying for it. I have concerns about how much is Polaris paying for it, because it sounds like they're going to degrade it a lot faster than I will.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Did I? What's that? I'm not sure what there is to answer, staff. Is there something that you want to?
This is just a public hearing, so there's not, this is the time for the public to speak.
And then we'll go
afterwards,
into those
council.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
You've got that done. Okay. Fabulous. Thank you.
My name is Renee Roig. I live at 5761 East Viking. And I've lived here for 37 years. And I paid for that road once already, a few years ago. And my concern, or my question is, why did not the people on the road get assessed like we get assessed for our property taxes? Some people have 200 feet of roadway with 2 driveways. Some people have 2 lots or 3 lots with 3 driveways. And some have 100 foot of frontage and a little driveway. So and then the businesses, did they get assessed the same as everyone else? Those are my questions. It was about the fairness of the way that it was assessed.
Sure.
I guess, that I have questions about.
Okay. Thank you.
And also the Polaris issue. During the roadway work, not a truck in sight. And they do vibrate so awful. My house just shakes every time. And where did they go when the roadway was closed? How did they get out of Polaris? And why can't they continue to do that instead of come down a city street? And it's just gonna go back the same way, day after day, truck after truck, hour after hour. They wrecked the road.
All right, thank you.
That's my,
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up. Okay, we don't mind.
Tom Terry, 26752 Freeport Court. My question, my request is that the council consider making the Polaris route similar to what it is now. In other words, Highway 8, a state highway. It's built to a different level than Viking Boulevard. At least maybe the semis. Fine, we got all these cars going back and forth. That's part of the Polaris deal, but the semis, that's a whole different story. So just, I'm hoping you would consider at least looking into it, making that detour permanent. Ask the people on Glen Oak how they like it.
All right, thank you. Come on up.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Kirk Larson, 5521 East Viking Boulevard. I don't live there, but I feel like I'm there. It's the Art Center.
Oh.
Anyway, just more of a question. We endured the summer with a lot of lost traffic and such, with signage and such, and that's what's done is done. But my question is, there's still signs that when you come into Wyoming on from the overpass, signs saying bridge closed, detour still. I'm assuming that's the bridge way down by Polaris. Maybe put a sign bridge out 5 miles away. We still have people not turning, not finding the art center at times because of the signage, and maybe I'm misunderstanding how that works, but that's my question or concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we need a motion to go back into closed session. No, well, whatever.
Close the public hearing.
There
Close
we
the
go,
public
close the
hearing.
public hearing.
So moved.
We need a second?
Second.
Second by member Luker, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are back into session. Okay, so we have a lot of questions to dig into. Do we want to start from council first, your questions, or do we want to answer
I want you to answer to their questions first.
who?
All the people in the audience.
No, but who do
questions.
you want to answer that?
I just said I would like to hear the answer.
Oh, got it, okay.
To,
The questions,
yeah.
okay. I think we should start kind of in order, though. Do you have one or two you want to start with
No,
that you
I
wrote
would
down?
go down in order as they came, but I would like to hear their answers before
Okay.
we start.
Okay,
Sure, we can start. It seems like the Polaris question has come up. I think the road, and obviously there is a greater amount of traffic that is caused when the Polaris plant, and I know that was the detour going through Glen Oak. The road was built to a standard to handle that traffic and some of that heavier traffic. Understood that obviously it's not necessarily real popular, the traffic that it does continue out there. The bridge is actually open as of today, so you may have seen more traffic starting through. I don't know, just this afternoon actually, that was the bridge and that work was completed, so that is open now. In regards to that, like I said, the road was built to a standard to be able to handle that traffic. That was something that we heard often during those public hearings, that was something of a real concern. So I know that our engineering team really looked at that and those sub-bases on that road to really make sure that it could withstand some of those heavier loads and some of that more traffic on that road. I don't know, Mr. Hornby, if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
We do go through, so this is a MnDOT, it's a state aid roadway, so we do follow standards that MnDOT requires, so it is a 10-ton design. We may put a restriction on that, a load limit on the winter for that roadway, but it is a state aid design and we also project traffic, and then we take the number of traffic paths by, mainly, passenger cars don't do as much damage as a heavy commercial vehicle. So what we do is we take a look at the heavy commercial traffic that goes over, and we look at the number of equivalent single axle loads that is gonna be on that pavement over a 20-year lifespan. And then what we do is we design the pavement to meet that criteria. And so, even though we look at that over a 20-year span, we also work in managing pavements so that we try to get the most out of that roadway, and typically they last longer, much longer than that. So when you go through and you see your mill and overlays and your seal coat improvements and crack filling and those kind of things, that helps extend the life of the life cycle of the pavement. So, long story short, we have to meet MnDOT requirements for it. They also review our design. We have to submit these plans to MnDOT before they'll sign off on certification for funding, and that's gone through that process. So, is it designed for the traffic? Yes, it's designed for the traffic.
Okay. And then as long as we're on that, we had a question regarding the lots, so many feet.
Sure. It's a good question. So in regards to this project, what we have done, what the council has done is there's different methodologies that we use for the assessment rates. For the residential projects like this, we use what is called a unit assessment. So what is done is each parcel is identified based on its zoning, and then we go through in those units if they can be subdivided, if they're just one buildable lot, or if they can be subdivided into other buildable lots. So that is how we determine those assessments on that roadway. The other one that the city has is a front foot method, but we usually only do that in commercial settings. We have another project ongoing right now in Fallbrook, and that is a front foot method. But through all the projects that we've done since 2014, it's always a unit method that we go through and determine that. So
are you saying that someone that has 200 or 250 front would be considered a two-lot?
if they were to meet the zoning standards where it could be subdivided by that zoning that they're in, yes, they could receive more assessments, correct.
So it might be a double assessment?
Could be a double or a triple even.
Depends on if you can build a house.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Would that be up to 2 units, the second house would be.
And then there was the question about businesses and the fairness of businesses paying.
Sure, and I think that's a good question. We did receive a lot of calls in regards to when the bridge construction was going on about that signage wasn't appropriate, that we had a lot of people going all the way down to the turnaround. So I think they continued to extend some of that detour signage out based on those complaints that we were receiving. I was not aware, I don't know if you talked to any of the people on the construction site, that we had concerns from the Hallberg Center for the Arts. But that was the main reason that we said that signage, because we received a lot of complaints that we need to have signage further up on that project, because people were getting out to the bridge, finding that even though we started out, I think, with signage starting about Glen Oak, and we had 3 signs on the way out that the bridge was closed, and we still received a lot of complaints that was not soon enough, so we kept kind of moving that signage out further. But certainly we would try to be thoughtful of our businesses. So as I said, that bridge is open as of today, so you'll start to see a lot of that signage come down.
Mr. Linwood, can you address the rerouting of trucks?
There was some detour during this. So the Polaris and some of the agreement that came in, I think predates, and obviously a lot of you here were for it, but the truck traffic does come through the west side as they are in the city of Wyoming. There was a detour during that, which I think Mr. Terry talked about, was on Glen Oak Drive. That will not remain. That is a residential road. Even though the traffic, we kind of talked about that East Viking is built, that you'll see that traffic will continue on that. As far as the east side, that is limited on any kind of truck traffic on that side, based that it is the entrance from Chisago City and just strictly an employee entrance, and that was determined back, my understanding, many years ago when Polaris came in through some of the different agreements that were made with the 2 cities. So that is most likely what we will see maintained. I'm not suggesting, I know there was some question if the city council can look at anything as far as traffic studies or those, and I think that's really at the city council if there's anything else that you want staff to look into or any direction that we have on this.
Okay. Did we get?
Are you saying then Viking Boulevard is not a residential street? You said Glen Oak is a residential street, and they won't
I think
continue on that road.
they won't continue on it. I think it's not built to the same standard. Not that it's not a residential road, but not built to the same standard as East Viking Boulevard is. I think as the engineer.
The new build will not shape the properties when the trucks come?
I don't necessarily know that if it won't shake properties, but the road, the actual way that the road is built to withstand some of those heavier traffic. In regards to shaking, no, I wouldn't be able to comment on that. I know that we've had, residents based on some ones that are closer to East Viking, they have stated that trucks can shake, and I don't doubt that, but I don't think that's the new construction of the road, even though it's a smoother ride and maybe there's less bumpiness, so maybe it'll alleviate some of it. I'm certain it probably won't all go away.
We'll see.
Okay. All right, council with questions, we'll start with Member Yeager.
Okay. All right, so Glen Oak was not built to withstand semi-traffic, is that correct?
Correct.
So, and East Viking is, so maintaining the detour is not a viable option?
I think based on the condition, that road in general, what it's built for, it wouldn't be a natural traffic pattern. I don't know, Mr. Hornby, from an engineering standpoint.
I meant by the current detour, in other words, they should be on Highway 8, State 8 Highway, County Road 36, built to a different level than Viking Boulevard, I have to believe. So, in other words, for semi and truck traffic to come out through Highway 8 and from the east. Rather than, I'm not saying they should go down Glen Oak.
Oh, I didn't know
Sure.
which detour, because when I walk, the detour is.
No, I was suggesting truck traffic take the detour they're taking right now, which is down Highway 8 to 36, to whatever that other county road is in Polaris.
Sure. East Viking.
Okay.
As I stated, there are agreements that when Polaris came in regards to the truck entrance is the west side and not that east side. So there are agreements prior to this that are still in place.
Yeah. And let me just say to council, now is the time, because now is the time to do it while this change is going on, rather than a year or 2 years, 3 years from now.
Mr. Lunan, can you?
Trucks that come down on the street where all those houses are.
Mr. Lunan, can you address that agreement portion, please? Because
We would have to review the agreements and what's in place. My assumption is it relates to the approvals on Polaris coming into the city of Wyoming and the city making certain promises to Polaris. I'm happy to take a look at them further if there's consideration for renegotiating. Obviously, Polaris would have to be a willing partner in that and reevaluating their routes, but ultimately, my presumption would be that had to do with when Polaris came into the city. The city made certain promises as conditions for Polaris coming to the city, and likely the access points were part of that. But I'm happy to review them. I haven't looked at them directly, so I can certainly do that, and we can see if there's any opportunity there to modify, if Polaris would be willing to participate in that.
okay, before we go any further, council, would you like that to have Mr. Lunan take a look at it?
I mean, it doesn't hurt to look at it.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. All right,
I have one more question. I was hearing about Polaris paying an assessment if they're going to destroy East Viking or continue to put their trucks down there and damage East Viking, and calls for a traffic study. If we were to do a traffic study and it was to be found that, yeah, there's damage from either Polaris or even SRC, if a garbage truck is going down to the dump, what remedies are available legally to deal with that?
I don't necessarily think that we have any remedies per se for, they could not be inclusionary for state statute and assessment policies in regards to the construction of that road, even though I understand that there is a significant amount of traffic that is created by them and potentially other businesses in that area. But it was really built to a standard just like any other road within the city, so there really isn't anything that we have on a city or a county on a state level really to, whether it was Kettle River, Wyoming Trail, or East Viking in regards to hold different companies that are, utilizing those main arterial roads into some sort of financial way.
The only other potential consideration would be some sort of weight restriction on the road. But the road was built to a certain standard, understanding that those trucks will be coming through, so we'd have to defer to engineering, figure out what that would be. and then some sort of weight restriction on that road. But again, some of that would go back to what we've looked at with the agreements with Polaris, the standards of the road, if we're even able to put any sort of restriction on it. That's the only other potential remedy that I can consider, but then you also need to be evaluating, using city resources to evaluate and weigh those trucks and figure that out. But as far as what Administrator Lynn was saying, there's no financial remedy that would be available. The remedy, potentially, if we looked at the standard of the road and said that it couldn't support a certain weight, would be to put those restrictions into place, and then we just have to enforce that through the city's policing power and putting Polaris on notice.
But if we couldn't do a detour around to the east side, the trucks have to get there anyway, right?
Correct, we can't stop any
Yeah,
kind of commerce
okay.
within a business, right?
Okay,
All
that's all I had.
Member Schilling?
My only question was the traffic study question. Did we do any type of traffic study prior to the reconstruct?
There hasn't been anything completed. I would probably defer to, I know Mr. Erickson's online, and I don't know if he can even hear me, but I think there was one completed back in around 2015, I think was the last time there was a study, and that was to try to determine some of that residential traffic from SRC and traffic from Polaris based on tubes being positioned on that road in different areas. But I think that's the last time, to my knowledge, that we've done any kind of significant traffic study. But Mr. Erickson, I don't know if you can hear that at all?
Yes, I can, Mr. Linwood. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we did, I believe in the 2010s at some time, I can't remember the exact date off the top of my head. We did a traffic study, and I did hear a comment from Mr. Terry regarding a traffic study. Those certainly can be completed without the bridge being out. We would, certainly could place traffic counters, out at Polaris and understand exactly how much traffic is coming in and out of their facility versus how much traffic is at the point where really most of the residential traffic no longer exists on East Viking. And so we do have the ability to measure traffic volumes and types of vehicles, in fact, with tube counters, and really identify what traffic exists that is going in and out of Polaris versus what are normal everyday users of the roadway.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. All right, Member Schilling, anything else?
Well, is this something that's expensive? I would be curious just to know. How long do they typically do a traffic study for? Is it 3 months? Is it a month? Is it 2 weeks?
Usually I think a few weeks. I don't want to speak for
Right.
Mr. Hornby.
Generally, it's a few weeks, and it's certain days of the week. So you typically don't do it on Monday, and you typically don't do it on a weekend or a Friday.
Okay.
And stay away from Thanksgiving. So, because that's coming up.
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
any other
That were my
questions?
only two,
Yeah.
because every one of the other ones were answered, so.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Member Onstad?
No questions, but I would like to see a traffic study done, just to show if the amount of traffic that is heavier, if it is coming from Polaris, if that is indeed the case.
Okay, and Member Yeager? No, sorry, Member Luger.
I know that last study was done, because I remember the area of sand, it was done over stagecoach days when there was no traffic.
Okay, thank you.
We need to do it on a normal business week,
Yeah.
not when things are shut down
Monday through Friday.
Right,
after a special holiday.
yeah, all right, thank,
A real accurate, honest.
I think it'd be very beneficial for us to do that.
all right. Member Luger?
Mayor, if I can, I can't hear all the commentary, but I thought I would just add that we're getting into a season where, the counting of traffic with tube counters with snow and snowplows becomes quite challenging. And so, we might want to wait until spring when traffic normalizes, and we can do that successfully, unless we, I think that would probably be the most prudent thing moving forward with the weather that might be coming here.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I always forget the weather's changing.
Right, but I thought the idea was to do the study before the semis started ramping up, going back to Polaris.
Well, as Mr. Erickson said, we don't have to, because the counters can make that determination between them, and if they just put them out towards the Polaris, we see everything that's going in and out of their area
Okay.
before it gets into the bottleneck, so.
Cool.
All right, Member Luger, your turn.
Oh, good. I do have a couple of questions. Mr. Hornby, you had mentioned that there is a potential for road restrictions for like a trigger to road restrictions being a thing, and I think you said in the winter. And I'm just wondering what conditions would culminate in that.
So every winter season, or I shouldn't say it, spring season, so when you're coming out of the ground is thawing, every year we put load restrictions on almost every roadway. And so typically on a roadway like East Viking, it would be reduced to 7 tons per axle. Other residential streets are reduced to 5 or 4, depending on its condition. The state highways are typically, they're reduced to 10, and so, and a lot of county and state trunk highways are also reduced to 10 or 9 or 10.
And that organically happens just
Yes.
because of due to the change in season?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. My second question is, just to this, and I'm just seeking clarification, that because this road was built to, it was a state aid road and it was built to MnDOT requirements, we can expect with or without Polaris traffic that it can last 20 years?
It's designed based on a 20-year life cycle.
Okay.
Which
and-
is the standard, yes.
Okay, and does that also include, does that account for, I guess, Polaris traffic?
Yes, Polaris traffic, all the traffic on the roadway was considered in the pavement design.
Okay, thank you.
All right, all my questions were answered. So we need a motion to approve Resolution 2311-104, a resolution approving the assessment roll for the 2023 East Viking Boulevard Street Construction Project.
Mayor?
Yes.
Can you make a note? I'm sorry, Mr. Hornby talked about the one.
Oh, yeah.
Assessment. If you can do for the record, just
Yep.
say the address of that
Yep.
assessment.
Yep, for the record, we did receive a letter. The address is 5703 East Viking Boulevard, as noted from Mr. Hornsby.
Yes, and that the driveway is on a differing
On a
road and
different
not on,
road.
not on the
That,
actual
that
property.
property
Yep.
will be removed from the assessment roll that you are gonna be approving by this resolution.
Yep, and it does not change, as Mr. Hornsby said, does not change the assessments. So,
Correct.
all right, so we do need a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Schilling. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Member Onstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. I'll just say next on our agenda is the consent agenda. And then we just have one item after that. If you'd like to stay, feel free to. If now is the time that you would like to maybe just, you're done with us, feel free to go ahead and head out real quickly as we continue with our agenda. Although we would love if y'all stayed.
Could I just ask, are any of you folks, do any of you folks live on Viking Boulevard?
No.
No one?
All right, so we'll come back to our agenda, the consent agenda, which is number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I would like to pull number 6, please, and I would like to pull 6, 7, 8. 6 and 8 I would like to pull. Is there any other ones, any items besides that to be pulled? All right, we need a motion to approve 3, 4, 5, 7, 3, 4, 5, and 7. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have Member Luger. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. So number 6, I think Mr. Linwood, you can answer this. It's regarding the critical water deficiency within the city of Wyoming. My only question is the signage. When will we, I'm assuming that we're gonna end up taking that down probably tomorrow once council approves this, but just wanna make sure.
You are correct. So now that we have to have a formal council action on this, we can go ahead and take down that signage. So I'm sure Public Works will be working tomorrow and potentially tomorrow, maybe the next day, but they'll be, I would certainly assume by the end of the week, they'll have it all gone. All
All
taken out.
right, fabulous, thank you. And then number 8 is the Ferguson Waterwork meter changeouts. I actually wanted to give kudos to Jenny and Stacy and just everybody who worked on the water meter changeout. Kudos to them, this was not easy. And my understanding in talking with staff, it actually went very smoothly.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I appreciate that. It was, we did contract with Ferguson, but really, Ms. Olson in our office was kind of our main point of contact and did a great job working with that contractor, organizing accounts the day in, day out in the weekly meetings and going through that. So she is our utility billing clerk, but really did a great job keeping on top of that project. So, and then we had other helping us in our admin staff from Mr. McFarland, and then also Ms. Sachs, and then just our public works department as well, just and being nimble and really fantastic and working through the project to be able to turn off water if necessary for repairs and through this. So we're really pleased in regards that we usually, that's about a 95% anticipated rate for these, and we're at a 98.55, which is really above and beyond. So we're really pleased, and we're continuing to work to try to close this out almost completely this year, and probably just a little bit left into next year. So I think we're down to about 17 accounts right now, which is phenomenal.
That's awesome. That just goes to show the dedication of our staff. So really, really appreciate our staff and all that they do. So
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Now that the water meters have been changed out, we will be able to fully utilize our radio remote a meter reading system that we purchased a few years ago.
Yes, we've been using it for quite some time, actually, because we utilize it for the ones that Public Works had been changing out prior to the complete change out. So we've been utilizing its capabilities for those, but you're correct, now we'll be able to use it for dang near everybody. So we're getting close to, hopefully it'll be everyone soon, but 98.5% right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I will make a motion to approve number 6 and number 8. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by member Onstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. We'll move on to 9, 10, 11, and 12, which is acknowledgement of receipts of reports of officers, boards, commissions, and department heads. Do we have anybody who would wish to pull an item from 9, 10, 11, or 12, or 13? Seeing none, we'll move on to communications. Number 14, Wyoming tree lighting ceremony. Save the date. Mr. McFarland, are you taking that for us?
There we go. Yes, I will. Thank you very much. One second, let me pull that up. Got Mark pulled off here. All right. Honorable Mayor and members of the council, this is just an update to let you all know that the annual tree lighting ceremony is going to take place the first Saturday again in December. So that's December 2nd, 2023, obviously, from 4:30 to 6. Mr. Linwood and I have been working with local businesses to find some sponsors, working on getting Santa and Mrs. Claus to be in attendance, and then so forth. Public Works has started putting up the lights this week as well. So, and if you've noticed too, a lot of that park, Railroad Park, is finished. So that'll be the first year that we've had Phase 1 fully complete then for this annual event. So.
Great. Chief Bauer, do we know if we're going to have Santa riding in the fire truck in the city on that same day? Kind of been the tradition?
Is, if you give me 1 second, I can confirm that, but I believe it is.
Yeah, usually that's the tradition, so.
It is on, yes, yep, on the 2nd, December 2nd.
Perfect. That sounds great. All right, thank you for that. And then, any questions from staff?
No, looking forward to it.
No, it's always a lot of fun. And number 15, Police Department hiring process update. Chief Bauer?
Yes, Mayor Everson, member of the council, I just want to provide a brief update on our hiring process for our 2 police officer vacancies that we've had. As you know, we've had one of those openings since December of 2022 and the other since July of 23. We've had 26 applicants since December that have applied for the position, which obviously is much lower than we usually would have given that amount of time. This is consistent across the state and even across the nation of kind of what we're seeing. But I just wanted to give you a quick update on, a little bit about what the applicants that we are receiving. We've done 6 background investigations with our part-time background investigator. One of those applicants was moved on, but was not recommended by our psychological evaluator in that role. 12 of them, of the applicants, had been officers or deputies in another department and had left for various different reasons prior to applying. We had 3, unfortunately, that had some criminal history that were not compatible with something I would want to hire. And this is the kind of the unfortunate part. 11 had integrity or questions about why they had left their previous employer, that as we dug into it, I wasn't willing to make that concession. So up to this point, things that we have done, staff created basically an elevator pitch for what it means to work for the city of Wyoming. And you can see that, and I just thought I'd read that briefly so you have that in front of you. The Wyoming Police Department is situated 30 minutes away from the Twin Cities and is footsteps away from the Chisago Lakes Outdoor Recreation Area. We enjoy a mutually respectful relationship and share genuine appreciation with our community. The department leadership believes in what we do and advocates for our needs. As a small department, we promote a progressive wellness culture and a family-like environment that works together to support each other. As a result, we are all trusted and encouraged to seek out training and development opportunities through their career. That was 100% created by the cops. So I think it's pretty cool, and I want to make sure that was in front of you. We have that on our webpage, for our recruitment webpage, just went live, I believe, last week, which is some basic information on there. We have this Reserve Cadet Officer program that we have 2 applicants for that we're going to interview this week, and hopefully that is a productive process. I continue to network with other departments for, people that might not be, if they're hiring 3 and they had 4 good applicants, reaching out to them, making contact with those applicants to try and convince them to apply to our departments. And we've worked on that wellness overall. Some things that I've seen across the country and locally are things like this Reserve Cadet program or CSO programs to help create pathways for future positions. A variety of different compensation incentives, things like take-home squads, alternative uniform options, different leave programs, health fitness club, salary, getting paid to be in the academy. Departments are sponsoring people to be going through school essentially, and a variety of other things. That doesn't mean that all of these are what we have to do or what we're going to do. I just wanted to give some context for what's going on around. Locally, I've seen hiring bonuses, just looking, it's between $5,000 and $8,000 is kind of what the norm is right now for entry-level position. And Chisago County just changed their programs. They have take-home squads available for the deputies in a broader range. So it used to be just had to live in the county. They've expanded that. And some additional, Chisago County expanded their initial leave balances significantly. I don't have specific numbers, but we're talking unheard of numbers of hours that they're giving people to start. So that is definitely something that will be, I would see, moving forward across the board. So I bring this to you just to say that I'm also part of a group with the Chiefs Association that looking at how do we create different ways for people to become officers across the state, and we're digging into that as well. So this is just information at this point. Put your thinking caps on. We can revisit it at a work session, but there's a potential that we might need to get more creative or become take alternative approaches to be make sure that we're marketable and a valued employer for others as well.
Chief Bauer, one thing when you come back to us with it, I'm just wondering if we can quantify some of those, long leave of whatever you were saying they're more
Sure.
of, and if it's really working. Like how many cities are doing that and how many are there able to hire? That'd
Sure.
be great. And then I only have one word that I would like changed on this that will make it more positive, the word away from the Twin Cities. Let's find a word that's more positive, because I love the fact that we're 30 minutes close to the Twin Cities. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So we can work on that. That's my only thing. Let's make it, that's just one word.
I love away from the Twin Cities.
No,
That's why I
we're
live here.
close to the Twin Cities. To all the
I
great
think the
things.
intent of it was that it's, these things are approachable, but
Yeah.
you still have that availability of the metro area.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Agreed.
departments in the metro area that are hiring. If you
Yeah.
want to be right in there, there's that opportunity.
Yeah.
This is still close, but you have this opportunity to be in this recreational area as well.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous, so that's great. Appreciate it. All right,
How
so.
about outside, 30 minutes outside of the Twin
Outside of
Cities?
the Twin Cities, yeah, instead of away?
Yeah.
Well, massage it, whatever. It's still awesome, so we appreciate that. We appreciate our officers for working on that.
Very much so.
All right, so new business, yay, number 16. To consider a work session meeting for the Wyoming City Council for November 21st, 2023. Mr. Linwood.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is just as designated in our rate study proposal and is through the schedule on that we will, are asking council to schedule a work session prior to our council meeting on November 21st. We would have the representatives of Erickson Northstar there with a draft utility rate study to discuss that with the council and provide feedback. So staff is asking council to consider a work session on November 21st at 5:30 p.m.
Okay, did everybody check their calendar?
Mhm.
It is a council meeting,
Yeah, I
so
was
we're
gonna
just
say, we
coming
have a council
earlier,
meeting
so.
tonight. I'm good.
Okay,
Will we be expected to vote on that rate study at the regular meeting?
No, we would not look at that. Per the RFP and per that schedule, it would come back actually on the next council meeting,
Okay.
the December 5th, I believe.
all right, any other questions? Then we need a motion to approve the work session meeting for the Wyoming City Council on November 21st, 2023 at 5:30 p.m.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Onstad. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Luker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. We'll go quickly into council reports. We'll start with Member Yeager.
No report. Thank you all for coming and thank you all for watching.
All right, then we'll go to Member Luker.
I also have no report. Thank you for coming and watching.
All right, Member Onstad.
I attended the Park Advisory Commission last night, and a lot of fun stuff coming up. And I appreciate everybody showing up tonight.
All right, thank you. Member Schilling.
I have no report, and thanks to those that came out and voiced their concerns. I appreciate it.
I just have a couple of things. Last Friday, we had 16 mayors from across the state of Minnesota who came to the city of Wyoming for the mini MMA, which is Minnesota Mayors Association. So excited to be able to share what the city of Wyoming is, what we've become over the years. So with that, I would like to thank Polaris, Rosenbauer, Village Inn, Lent Pumpkin Patch, Sunrise, Sunrise River Orchard, and Split Rocks, and I hope I didn't forget anybody. It was really a great time. A lot of information was shared, and Mr. Linwood, I'd like to thank you as well, and Mr. Weck. So, also, Chief Bowery had one update, and that was on Santa. I think there's 2 more things coming up. Fill the truck?
Yes, we're working on that. It will be coming up the next couple weeks.
Okay,
for that,
perfect.
yes.
That'll be fun. So, all right, so that's all I have tonight. I thank everybody for being here. We always appreciate input. I should talk about Veterans Memorial Park. Do we have any more updates?
This time, other than we are substantially complete on that, we're waiting for some lighting and we're waiting for some flags that are on order to get those flags up on the existing poles there, but nothing else at this time.
Okay, perfect. All right, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?